First and foremost, my name is Juan Lyle. I'm the head of services sales here at Cobweb. But don't let that title fool you. This is not a sales webinar at all. We're not here to sell you anything today. This is I think the second or third in a series of webinars that we're putting together here at Cobweb that are exclusively for customers, and the aim is to provide you with some information, news, some tooling to help you make the most of your investments, usually that you've already made in Business Premium, or help you in guiding you in making some sensible choices when it comes to upgrading and working with within your IT, your Microsoft license stack, I should say. So the title of the webinar is Business Premium, a smarter use of your IT budget. The idea here is to talk about Business Premium. Lots of our customers have Business Premium licenses, but without necessarily having the knowledge or the skills to understand all the different applications that lie within it, and some really useful tooling that can help you to be secure and productive and so on. So I'm going to pass over to Pedro Wall. Pedro is a Microsoft Modern Workplace specialist. He will run through Business Premium and all of its secrets. If there are any questions throughout the webinar, please either put them in the chat element or raise a hand, and we'll look to answer them probably at the end of the webinar. But if it's opportune to do so as we go through, then we will. But we'll probably answer those at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded, so it can be shared with those that have subscribed and not been able to attend. So just so you know that that's the case. But anyway, I've spoken too much already. Pedro, over to you.
Juan, thank you very much for the intro, sir, and team. Kind of welcome to this session. Of course, going looking at Business Premium as mentioned. So kind of a smart use of kind of your IT budget, but also why it stands as a bit of a hero SKU. So as Juan mentioned, of course, I am one of the modern workplace kind of specialists. In fact, that title's actually kind of changed, as Microsoft love to come in and chop and change. It's actually now as the AI Business Solutions Specialist, according to Microsoft. So lots of kind of key changes coming into effect as well. But today we'll go through pretty much everything on Business Premium, how it can come in and help your business and strive for the best in terms of solutions. Bit of an agenda as well that we've got, a bit of breakdown for you guys as well. So overview of kind of Business Premium as a whole. So some of the key features that are kind of available, the challenges faced by businesses today. Of course, we've had so many different kind of aspects in the news outlets. So how those are kind of key changes that have kind of come into effect since even after COVID, and even utilizing that word to these days is quite crazy. But yeah, it's still kind of massive challenges are faced from the offset. Then, of course, important security, the importance of security in modern kind of work environments as well, how security plays a massive layer with that kind of inclusion with Business Premium and how that kind of works. Some of the key solutions then, of course, offered on top as well, but also some case studies, right? So really kind of real world applications in terms of how that kind of fits in tangent with the likes of Business Premium and how that can be very, very useful indeed, as well as kind of following with conclusion, next steps, and a bit of a Q&A at the end as well, if you guys have got any more further kind of questions as well going forward. So without further ado, let's kind of begin with the challenges that are currently kind of faced in the market share at the moment as well. So since kind of COVID, things have massively changed, even using that word, and it's just kind of, you know, looking back into kind of the history books, of course, as well, that will definitely kind of remain there. But of course, the challenges and the offset as a result of COVID has definitely kind of changed the working parameters of our lifestyles from a corporate and personal perspective. So definitely from a corporate angle, these are three layers that start coming into effect as well that also kind of cross-tabulate from the Work Trend Index. If you guys are kind of more than aware of what the Work Trend Index is, essentially it's a bit of a report that Microsoft go through and kind of analyze pretty much annually, that goes through about 30 different countries with over 30,000 different endpoints. So really kind of heavy forecast on everything within the productivity kind of cycle within the corporate kind of realm, and how everything's pretty much kind of working through from that angle. So since COVID, they've had a lot of different other reports that come through as well through that. But these are the three key findings that they've kind of analyzed that have come through as a result of that. So with the first being kind of real-time kind of collaboration, how we're starting to kind of collaborate in kind of different environments, the fact that we're constantly kind of traveling, we're travelers now as kind of considered what we are as kind of users in the workplace, going from kind of working in the new coffee shop, kind of traveling to kind of a different kind of place in terms of kind of, transport, trains, connecting through different types of networks. So collaboration is massively kind of different in terms of that hybrid lifestyle that we're starting to kind of see. And it's not kind of changing at all for the most part. So collaboration is a huge thing, but also as a result of that collaboration, that hybrid working from home and working from pretty much anywhere is also kind of increased vulnerabilities of security, tapping into those networks, not realizing they're kind of the vulnerabilities that lie within, can be quite scary as well. That leads to malware and ransomware, unbeknownst to a lot of different people and users in the industry. So security is massively kind of one of the biggest paramount things at the moment that we look at, and especially when it comes to business premium as the hero SKU, that's where some of the biggest focus starts to come through. So security is massive. You've got that collaboration, but also the cost. And the cost pretty much interlinks with the bottom kind of word that we can see there as well, that sentence. Legacy solutions don't solve challenges. Mixed vendor environments add that complexity. So as a result of that collaboration of hybrid working, with the increased of security kind of vulnerabilities, folks and businesses are going through and adding everything they can in order to solve those challenges. But unbeknownst to them, of course, that adds the level of complexity of managing. It's like kind of tabs on a screen that you can go through and trying to kind of sift those through those waves to kind of find what you kind of need, adds that level of complexity, especially when it comes to management, and therefore cost is massively affected. With all these different types of services, of course, you're going to have a high-end kind of cost as well to try and go in and manage. So how can we come in and start consolidating kind of all of that into kind of one single area is kind of top of mind as well. So another kind of key kind of point to kind of bear in mind is obviously kind of security, as we've kind of mentioned massively before in the previous slide. We can see kind of one of the biggest questions. There's something that you guys can take back as well, kind of, from this session and kind of, kind of work through it up until the Q&A, of course, if it's kind of something of top of mind. But in terms of kind of employees are working more from kind of, locations than ever, are you confident that your data is entirely safe? So really kind of understanding that, kind of looking in how your devices are managed and how you have, if you've got MFA, 2FA kind of enrolled as well. Simple things like that is absolutely key when it comes to kind of security. And we'll go through a lot of those points momentarily. A huge stat to add to the main, of course, over 300% of ransomware attacks in the past year have been kind of come through, with more than 50% targeted at smaller businesses. Many people think it's mainly enterprises that get affected. And it's scary to realize that it's not just the big enterprises like your North Face or your M&S most recently that got kind of affected, that you guys might have heard of quite a lot at the moment, kind of in the news outlet. But of course, even the smaller, medium businesses do get affected massively because they act as an intermediary between their enterprises. So of course, if those SMBs have certain enterprise grade level clients, of course, kind of the first point basis to kind of go through is potentially that SMB. So it's always kind of the one thing to ensure that it doesn't matter kind of how big or how small you are, that level of protection has to be intact no matter what, when it comes to the likes of security, but also kind of ransomware and malware that do sit in the back end waiting to kind of to breach any business that has that level of vulnerability. Nearly one in four or medium small businesses state that they have kind of a security breach in the last year. So it's kind of prevalent massively. And over 70% think that cyber threats are becoming more of a business risk. So of course, with the likes of ransomware, malware, those can infect kind of businesses, corporate data. With Marks & Spencer's, for example, that completely wiped out absolutely everything they had to stop from the beginning. So the amount of downtime they had was quite crazy. I remember literally going to a Marks & Spencer shop not too long ago because of the convenience, and literally asking the assistant to kind of what the situation was with all the outbursts in the news, and he couldn't even go in and book holiday in because the whole system was down. So simple things like that can absolutely tarnish the reputation but also the actual business itself as well. So the business risk is absolutely huge, especially from a reputational damage that can actually occur, as well as the costs that can be applied as well on the back end. So yeah, it's quite scary to think that as well. And also the amount of an average cost is about 108,000, which is huge. And even for an enterprise, that's huge amounts of money. But for a smaller one as well, it can be destructive and literally kind of lead to bankruptcy as a result as well. So these are some key kind of reports at the very bottom that you guys can come and have a look at as well. Always kind of good to kind of come in and see and understand how that data is portrayed across globally as well. But going into more of kind of Microsoft and the modern work kind of realm, this is a great little breakdown between each of the SKUs. So in SMB, you have between basic, your standard, and your premium. Of course, more of the basic kind of level entry. You're going to get kind of more of that cloud kind of applications that you can come in and utilize, but not desktop. So you don't get those kind of downloadable desktop kind of applications that you come in and use. But as we move further down, obviously from the actual screen itself, standard starts adding a little bit more into the mix with a lot more different other productivity tools that we can start using, as well as desktop applications. But the real thunder when it starts coming through is business premium, and categorized as kind of the hero SKU in terms of productivity, the levels kind of engagement that you can have and utilize, but mainly the actual kind of bottom level where you've got that hero product, which is the security management tools that you have built within. These are the biggest things that kind of make kind of business premium what it is, between your Intune, information protection, conditional asset access, Azure Virtual Desktop, Defender for Business, Defender for Office 365, and Cloud App Security as well. Probably a little bit easier to see kind of in this screen how they're kind of all broken down. Of course, Intune in terms of kind of having your device management. So if I've got pretty much two phones, probably won't see it because the background, one's a personal and then one's a work phone, kind of how they're managed and how they're kept kind of secure as well is kind of absolutely important. So we'll go through examples of each of these that are included as kind of the hero SKU for business premium, information protection, how that collaboration of kind of data is kind of protected between kind of sending data outwards as well, and kind of ensuring that you've got the right kind of levels of protection on those documents. So we'll go through pretty much all of those. Conditional access as well, kind of the additional levels of conditions that you can start adding in to the likes of MFA or access into particular kind of systems. So conditional access is a huge plus that you get with Business Premium, as well as Azure Virtual Desktop, the ability to go in and spin up virtual desktops. You might see Azure here, but they also have Windows. So Windows and Azure, pretty much the same thing. So of course, that is included in Business Premium, the fact that you can spin that up, work flexibly wherever you want without having it kind of all single kind of in one device if you work in multiple different devices and different elements. Spinning up a virtual desktop is absolutely easy. So the base license of that is entirely included. And of course, it's on a bit more of a consumption model. So depending on how much you're using it, that can be also kind of extra in the back end. But Windows and Azure Virtual Desktop are pretty much the same thing. Then you've got Defender for Business as well. So how we're starting to utilize ransomware malware that if they potentially try and infect the actual corporation and try and get through, how we have that next generation of protection instead of your AV and your kind of legacy type solutions, how Defender for Business starts coming through as well. So we'll walk through a little bit of that and how that works with the likes of EDR, endpoint detection and response, and some of the other kind of incredible solutions that do come through with Defender for Business. Defender for Office 365 focuses then pretty much on all your productivity stack. So going through your emails, your Outlook, ensuring that kind of those simple things and emails that may potentially kind of come through might be actually infected. So how they're kind of protected through the likes of those sandbox and URL detonation type links are built in within Defender for Office 365. We'll go through that in a bit of an example later on. And then of course, Cloud App Security, making sure employees and folks are kind of using kind of the right, correct kind of applications and not kind of deterring to kind of shadow IT type applications, which are kind of a little bit more beyond. So of course, you've got a mixture of different things that kind of are included within the actual BP stack. But this is the huge value that you start to get when it comes to the likes of Business Premium. So very firstly, we're going to start probably with the kind of MFA. You guys probably kind of know about MFA. You probably might even use it today. and I use it pretty much all the time at the moment. Of course, it's more of a mandatory thing, but it's a great thing to utilize as well, and how that's starting to kind of change, of course, in comparison to the usual kind of multi-factor authentication, whereby you'd kind of receive a code to your phone, that you would input that code then to kind of gain access to that particular kind of system. So this is where things start to kind of change a little bit more when it comes to passwordless technology, to increase the level amount of security that you have in order to kind of gain access to a particular device or system, or even network as well going forward. So passwordless technology, kind of in these four kind of elements that we have come with Microsoft, the very first being Authenticator. So Authenticator, very, very useful kind of tool as well, whereby when you kind of have, you want to gain access to a particular kind of area, that will prompt into its own application to go into Authenticator to ensure that you are the right person trying to gain access to that particular system. It's going to analyze where you're coming from an actual location. So this kind of interlinks with the likes of conditional access as well, that we'll discuss momentarily. But the fact is, it'll give you exactly where you're coming from, where you're trying to sign in from, and then if it actually is you trying to sign in. Of course, this kind of comes up pretty much similar to most MFA solutions, bit of a code. We copy that code in and you can gain access to the system. So you guys are probably quite native with that. You've also got kind of the likes of Windows Hello as well, that are built in natively with most kind of applications and devices as of today. So you still have that kind of entry that you can come through there. You've got the FIDO2 security key, so a USB stick. So essentially you can go in and plug that in and utilize that as a kind of a form of kind of entry as well if required. And very much more kind of formally, we've got biometrics, which takes that kind of next level, whereby you can literally put fingerprint kind of technology to kind of gain kind of access to that particular system or device. You pretty much get that anyway with some Android devices today. But yeah, that's kind of what you start to have when it comes to accessing kind of different systems, to ensure that, yeah, someone's not trying to replicate that kind of level of access. No one's trying to impersonate you, and it is you trying to gain access to that particular kind of system. So it's huge in terms of even the kind of the basic element of MFA. But it's interesting to note that MFA kind of accounts for about 99% less likely to be compromised as a result. Why is this the case? Because human error pretty much accounts for the biggest level of vulnerability in the actual market, in an actual corporation. Unfortunately, our own instinct as kind of human layers is kind of making those kind of mistakes, unfortunately, and unfortunately it can happen to absolutely anyone. So it's ensuring that you have that level of security, even for our own good, in case we do make that mistake unmaliciously as well going forward. So human error is massive, and MFA could really come in and be kind of a savior from that perspective as well. But yeah, quite a lot kind of to add in, which is simply MFA. Some of the kind of the actual challenges then as well that starts to come through, that we start having, that we're going to go through now as well at the moment, is kind of unauthorized access, Entra ID. So Entra is kind of the new terminology that was kind of given kind of a few years ago, and has changed from kind of Azure Active Directory. So many folks kind of still see it as that. So you may even still see that being surfaced, but Entra is kind of the new terminology now given to pretty much that area for identity kind of management, essentially. That's pretty much where everything's kind of governed from that perspective. So Entra ID kind of plan 1 is what you do get with Business Premium. So you're going to get kind of a massive level of functionality that's included with your BP license. In these kind of challenges and solutions, we're going to use kind of Northwood Traders as kind of our representative at the moment for these areas. So of course, you've got an employee that needs to access kind of work data as they kind of start working from home or they're on the go. However, actors outside the circle of trust may try to gain access to work information, for example, stealing passwords and trying to gain access to the work data from another country. Many folks think it's more so kind of just in the UK that folks are trying to get in, but it's globally. Everyone's trying to kind of gain access, especially bad actors, from whenever they can, from wherever they can see that vulnerability fit on that perspective. So the solution, of course, then, again, MFA. This is where a great example of MFA can kind of come into intact, as well as what conditional access policies are as well. So the conditions that you do set as a result of that MFA, that access into those applications, are massive. So some of them are the kind of the default kind of prominence that you can have when it comes to MFA. If I'm signing from this particular application, trying to gain access to a device or a certain application, And then, of course, 5 minutes later, I try and sign in from Germany or another kind of country itself. Obviously, that's going to prompt MFA because it's not recognizing the IP address or where I'm trying to sign in from. And also, more so from a proactive standpoint and behavioral asset, it's going to analyze kind of where you're coming from, of course, because as we mentioned before, when you prompt MFA, it's going to come up with that actual kind of geolocation as well. So that's kind of the conditional access that gets built into the background that can ascertain where that kind of person's coming from. So, of course, in that sense, if someone else is trying to kind of come in from Germany and trying to sign in, I'm going to be notified for that and try and block that level of access. So you're restricting kind of access going forward as well, which ensures the right people have the right access to that work data in general. So conditions can be set across multiple different kind of areas, whether it's kind of a certain application, whether it's a certain kind of device, whether it's outside of the UK. You can set so many different kind of conditions on behalf of that to ensure that you guys are kind of completely compliant and you have all the levels of protection in the back end for your systems too. So yeah, that's where that stack can be absolutely huge because it's restricting kind of human error and also the potential for bad actors to try and gain access as well, because you have all that level of control within. That's where that 99% does come through in terms of thwarting kind of those level of attacks as well, all included with your level of business premium. Another one that we're going to start going into then, of course, is phishing attacks. Probably one of the biggest ones when it comes to from what we've seen. And of course, this is kind of the one thing that is starting to kind of be on the absolute rise, especially when you've got different levels of kind of things being sent to kind of your outlooks as well, and it's ensuring that you've got kind of everything kind of analyzed. You got to go through everything, and they're getting a lot more clever as they go along and more sophisticated. So in this kind of sense, North Windows Traders employee receives an email with a link to a secure document from a well-known kind of organization. They enter their credentials to view the document, but the document fails to load. They move on to other work and forget about that glitch itself. So this, in essence, was an actual phishing attack, and they just delivered their kind of username and password to hackers. This actually happens pretty much all the time. People kind of from a human error perspective or kind of multitasking, on average, I believe humans and us folks do get distracted about every 2 minutes from a notification on our phone or something else coming through. And we've just kind of, that little kind of loss of concentration can be the difference between that increase in vulnerability as well going through. So simply, just kind of losing that perspective and then going in and giving access to kind of bad actors, they've got access to that particular document and everything that's kind of included as well. So yeah, that was obviously kind of a phishing attack, but the amount of increase in phishing email detections has been absolutely astronomical, from up to 250%. This is back in 2018. Nevertheless, kind of after kind of COVID and some of the stats that are coming through there as well. Of course, we will send you kind of a lot more different stats on what they currently are as well. But of course, they are massively on the rise going forward. And then going into more of the sophisticated kind of phishing defenses that you also get from Business Premium, going away from just kind of your productivity suite. The same goes for kind of those specific links as well that we start having. Obviously, you've got the likes of this kind of massive red banner that can come through on the top part of your screen, indicating that that website is being classified as malicious. The amount of times that saved me from kind of seeing that in action coming into kind of my mailbox and then understanding that is kind of a bit of a malicious link, I should go in and click into it. But of course, then sometimes I might want to go in and preview it and make sure it is kind of completely what it says it is as well. So you do have this kind of URL detonation. You can actually come in and preview this in a bit more of a sandbox type environment as well to ensure that this email, this link is actually malicious, which can be incredibly useful to kind of make sure that is kind of completely true. But you've got all these other kind of areas that are kind of built into the actual pack to kind of help save you from kind of actually accessing that document or that link itself to cause kind of issues in the background, of course, with phishing, ransomware, malware, and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is where you've got this level of sophisticatedness that are kind of built in to the defenses for your business that come included with your Business Premium as well. Going a little bit more forward then, of course, we've got an accidental kind of data loss or kind of data breach through kind of information protection. This is kind of another big thing as well when it comes to a lot of businesses still utilizing the likes of Excel we're obviously going to use Northwind kind of traders in this example, but I have seen a lot of businesses in the past still use kind of personal information that are kind of interlinked within Excel. So that legacy kind of way of going through might be quite easy to the eye to go in and manage. But then, of course, do they have the right level of security kind of on top of it as well? So in this kind of sense, we've got kind of an Excel spreadsheet to guard kind of sensitive info like kind of salaries. And of course, these security measures are used inconsistently. Lots of documents are kind of emailed around and even saved on USB keys as well. And especially if you're traveling, if you're kind of moving kind of on a train, USB sticks pretty much in, and then you're wandering about to go kind of to the loo, and you kind of come back, and of course, and that USB stick goes missing. Without the right security policies kind of intact within that USB stick, anyone can gain access to that kind of information. Therefore, data leakage can be quite large as well. So how can we start restricting that going forward to protect kind of the business as well? And again, a crazy alarming a stat that we do have is that over 80% of small, medium businesses do handle personal information data on a daily basis, whether it's credit card information, anything from passport information, can be absolutely anything that's kind of interlinked, addresses, so on and so forth. It can be all built into kind of one single spreadsheet, and without the right level of security, that's where things can get quite scary and alarming as well going forward. So the solution then, of course, is where we start going into classifications that we start having as well. So securing that kind of sensitive data that's actually kind of built in. So we do have sensitive labels now that are also kind of available for us that we can start applying to those specific documents. So the example of that Excel spreadsheet that we have, and we've got all kind of different salary information, it could be absolutely anything. We can literally apply a highly confidential kind of label onto that particular document to kind of, to save it from anyone trying to kind of get access to it that shouldn't have access to that particular kind of area, which is brilliant because I've been guilty for it many kind of years ago, especially when in the organizations, when you're going through and you're kind of multitasking again and you're doing kind of different things, and you've got common names like Ryan and Joe kind of in businesses, and all of a sudden you send it to the kind of the wrong person without kind of actually realizing. Well, the good thing is, of course, when it comes to this particular solution, of course, highly confidential kind of elements will kind of be automatically applied once it senses that you've got kind of personal information intact within that actual document. So that could save so much time instead of trying to go through, especially if you're working quite hard and you're multitasking a lot of the time. Having that automatically applied to that particular kind of document can save you a lot of trouble. So if I'm sending it to that Joe or that Ryan, they can't gain access to it because of those kind of labels that are intact as well. They would need to come in and sign in with the likes of MFA to be able to gain kind of access to that particular kind of document as well. So that will be kind of encrypted until that actual person comes in and gains access to that document. So it can be a big savior when it comes to the likes of secure and sensitive data and just having those kind of labels intact within as well. So yeah, huge stuff to kind of bring into the mix when it comes to that element. And again, we mentioned this as well, this automatic kind of classification that you do start having with data loss prevention. You've got the stat of 55% of SMBs are concerned about employees leaving their company with data on personal devices. And this is kind of a massive thing, right? And when it comes to the fact that you've got folks that have, they offboard, they leave companies, and they have so much data on kind of an actual device, a laptop or a phone. And of course, that hasn't been managed properly. That hasn't been completely wiped entirely. They still have access to those kind of documents in those areas. They move to a competitors type environment. They can use that at their own kind of free will. It can be quite terrifying in that sense as well. So it's how we can start securing that kind of and preventing kind of data leakage as well. Again, having this automatic kind of enrollment of sensitive kind of labeling is huge. As soon as you can sense credit card numbers, if it's kind of passport numbers or any of those things that we've mentioned before, it's automatically going to be kind of encrypted, which is brilliant and useful for that situation, but also the fact that you can start coming in and wiping certain data as well from devices if someone does actually come in and leave the business. So it's kind of following that level of protocol and compliance for your business as well, which is absolutely huge in the absolute main. And then coming into kind of another kind of big solution is Intune. Intune is probably regarded, in my opinion, one of the biggest in the industry, especially with Business Premium, because it comes included in your license as well. So you do get kind of Intune Plan 1. And of course, in this sense, we've got kind of a North Wader Trading kind of marketing manager using kind of a personal phone to check kind of company email. She receives a confidential kind of business plan and saves it for later reference. She accidentally kind of saves it to a personal share, which is absolutely not secure in any way. And this can happen maliciously as well, in the sense that, again, you're multitasking, you're busy, you're distracted, you've got things that you're trying to go in and do, and it's just convenience, right? You come in and try and save it into your personal storage without kind of actually realizing that could be a data risk, especially if it's like sort of a Dropbox that you've gone in and saved it in, and then all of a sudden, that gets kind of hacked. That data then, of course, gets leaked, and that's where that kind of increase in vulnerability does go forward as well. So it is quite terrifying when you do have that perspective. But when Intune kind of changes that parameter. Essentially, it will block you from trying to save that into your personal storage, which is incredibly useful. So that, of course, even maliciously, if you try and go and do that, you're not going to be able to go in and save that document unless it's in an actual corporate area as well. So very useful to have, especially on personal devices. If I am traveling on holiday and I need to go and access my actual Outlook, and I need to kind of go through and send emails back and forth, but maybe it's something I need to save as a PDF, it's going to go in and stop me from actually doing that unless it's an actual corporate environment I'm trying to save that in, which can be incredibly useful in that sense as well. So this is a great kind of example in terms of how it works on an actual personal device. It acts like a bit of a Chinese firewall between your personal and corporate data. So you each can't have access to either. So it's great to have that kind of separation between both. So obviously your corporate data is not going to have access to kind of your personal data and vice versa. So of course you can only save it kind of your corporate kind of documents in your corporate environment as well. So in this sense, we save it to a kind of a OneDrive for business, and it's kept and stored there as well. So it's great to know kind of how that's kind of foreseen kind of on an actual device. And again, more stats that we can throw at you as well. 58% of employee devices on average are configured with proper security protocols, and fewer than 1 in 5 saying that all employees undergo security training. So it's interesting to see that, the configuration methodologies that are kind of in the main for a lot of these kind of different devices as well. You guys might come across different competitors in the market. Some of the most kind of notorious ones that are kind of out there, like Jamf Pro as well, that are kind of absolutely available. Now, of course, the likes of Jamf Pro, what you can see with that, it's actually more articulated towards kind of Apple and iOS type devices, whereas Intune is catered to absolutely everything from kind of your Android, from your kind of your Windows type devices, as well as iOS. The management and applicability kind of applies to all of those areas too. So it's a lot more easy to manage, whether it's a device, a laptop, phone, whatever it may be. You can come in and manage it at scale. So that's kind of a huge thing from a configuration element, and especially kind of when it comes to onboarding, offboarding, that employee experience is at a much more higher level, as well as the security layers that are also brought in as well. So that's kind of Intune, but then going into more on the cloud app discovery. So this is kind of another kind of element, very kind of similar to how Intune kind of works as well. But this kind of ascertains data kind of portraying to different areas of applications that employees or users may try and go into. So shadow IT essentially kind of being in the shadows of applications, people trying to kind of download other applications beyond the realm of the normal corporate environment. That is kind of what can be kind of notified as well, that you can start seeing, so you can understand where that data is being kind of trafficked as well, back and forth. Is it being saved in those kind of corporate areas, or is it being taken kind of externally? So that kind of full overview is incredibly brilliant, because it brings everything pretty much under control in terms of how everything's managed. Again, it's linked with data leakage, ensuring that you're not saving those in kind of those files in other kind of areas, that nefarious areas that can have level of vulnerabilities. You've got everything kind of built in to kind of prevent that as well, and give you a full report in terms of where everything is stacked. Can be incredibly useful as well for businesses to understand where they're currently at the current moment. Then going into a little bit more on Defender for Business. Defender for Business then is kind of the elevation in security. The traditional models of kind of, we know as antivirus and kind of your Nortons of the world, of course, those are more of your traditional kind of methodologies in terms of how they're kind of built in. They do kind of a relatively kind of good job, but then it's also that more of that proactive enterprise grade that it does kind of lack unless you start spending kind of a lot of money on the very, very big packages. Now, the inclusivity of what you do get with Defender for Business is huge. Obviously, enterprise grade protection if you guys do know about kind of Microsoft's ecosystem and the E5 license being kind of the 50 quid motherload license that brings in pretty much everything for you in terms of a security avenue, well, this is pretty much kind of replicated more so into the SMB environment, the small medium business environment, to give you kind of those enterprise grade tools, especially in Business Premium. So a very useful kind of place to kind of start coming into, where you've got the likes of threat detection, so going into more of that behavioral analytics and machine learning that kind of starts to kind of understand where you're currently at as well, with everything in terms of kind of attacks. Really kind of understanding that layer is huge. You've also got automated investigation that sits in the background, automatically kind of investigating alerts to determine if they're kind of real threats as well or not. So you have that ability to kind of let that go through and utilize. But all of this kind of links to the fact that, of course, we're so kind of busy. We've kind of worked from 9 to kind of 5 or even beyond that. And then we have our own leisure time. Well, these kind of tools sit in the background. They kind of work for us and help us. So when we can come back to the actual desk, we're not kind of absolutely kind of prompted with all these kind of issues that are kind of closing our laptops and kind of causing huge issues and downtime. They essentially kind of come to our aid and our assistance massively in the background. That's how it differs between your kind of traditional to more of these kind of modern EDR, endpoint detection and response type solutions that have a bit more of a proactive kind of stance with everything that you do. So you can even do more like responsive kind of actions, isolating devices. So if you have devices that have been infected and they've got that level of kind of ransomware that have kind of started coming through, and they get through the first grade of a device, say for example, you have the ability with the likes of kind of this EDR solution to be able to kind of absolutely block that device and isolate it from the actual network. Again, being very useful. So even if it goes through, you think of it like layers of an onion, it gets through the first layer, but the second layer gets obviously blocked through those policies that come through with Business Premium and EDR. You've got other things like kind of timeline and forensics, kind of a lot more kind of associated with your enterprise type of environment. So giving you a bit of an audit trail across where that incident took place, how it took place, from what device, and a bit of a timeline that you can start kind of taking forward as well. So you can start having that recovery methodology going forward and ensuring that you guys don't kind of repeat that. So these are kind of certain little things that you get with Defender for Business that come intact, that give you that hero type element and that premium feel massively going forward. So again, very easy to use. A lot of questions I get asked all the time in terms of how quick can it take, until you get kind of Business Premium up and running. In minutes. The moment that you kind of go in and enroll that kind of into your organization, it's going to be up and running. It definitely is worth kind of understanding kind of the traits of it, how everything kind of works in each of its places, but definitely kind of in the box of purview and compliance is where it pretty much all sits, that you can go in and manage, and you can add additional conditions depending on your kind of requirements and kind of what you need. So it's very easy to use within the Microsoft ecosystem. And especially when you're interconnecting the likes of Intune with managing devices and so on and so forth. The management is absolutely brilliant on that. And of course, it's cost effective. I mean, at the same time, you've got all of this included literally in a Business Premium SKU as well. So without you needing to pay additional kind of cash, additional money on that as well, it's all available in one single place, which is brilliant. So the consolidation phase is all there for you. So you have your productivity, you have your tools, you have your security as well. So instead of it being like a tabs on a screen that you need to kind of, that can be quite complex because you have to go and manage this and that, and the amount of time consumption taken for that can be quite a lot. So how can we consolidate that and save time as well as money? Is just having everything in one place. So yeah, Business Premium does pretty much give you all of those areas to help you kind of going forward as well. Very finally, I'm going to go through with the last challenge as well, a little bit more on ransomware, because ransomware is basically a very hot topic at the moment, kind of in the mix. So of course, during the busiest times kind of the year, whether it's kind of Christmas, going into kind of summer period, people on holidays, everyone wants to go in and travel. Northwind traders kind of missions, kind of critical files become completely unusable. Hackers used ransomware to encrypt Northwind's files, demanding a payment for the encryption key. Northwind must either pay up or lose their data, which could result in business closure. In most cases than others, and the moment you even try and go and pay, you'll still lose that data. So it doesn't even kind of completely give you the aspect of safety if you are going to go pay. So A, you lose all that kind of cash, and B, of course, is no kind of guarantee you're going to get access to that data. So can be quite terrifying to know kind of how that kind of works in the back end. Now, of course, when the likes of kind of BP, again, we talked about Defender for Business and what we kind of mentioned with the layers that come through like an onion. Of course, we're going to use that kind of example again, but of course, that's how it comes through if it comes through the one first gate, it's going to be blocked at the second gate as well. So the three ways that it comes in and protects, of course, you've got email sandbox and safe links for kind of entrusted senders. So if they're trying to send it through kind of the likes of Outlook and try and deliver that payload, of course, it's going to get blocked through the likes of those kind of security layers that you have built in, that sandbox, that preview environment and detonation that you have, and also the protection against kind of targeted ransomware attacks with EDR. So the functionalities that we've mentioned already that we do have in the back end that you do have will kind of come intact as well for you, working in the background to kind of ensure that you've got everything kind of built in without you needing to touch a finger kind of on a button or anything at all. And then again, the automated investigation, kind of that response phase that we mentioned as well, providing that post-breach protection file recovery via kind of a OneDrive for Business as well. So you do have that kind of post-breach recovery methodology that's also built in if you kind of absolutely need. So it's crazy how the stats are kind of increasing, how things are changing. I think about 94% in 2020 is the average cost of downtime associated with kind of ransomware attacks. That's enough to kind of close businesses for kind of days on end, and especially kind of how the market has kind of shifted radically. Yeah, it can cause massive troubles in the back end. So yeah, having everything in one place essentially is going to help save that as well. And this is a bit of a great example to kind of break down between these three kind of aspects, between kind of delivering endpoint security across all these platforms, Windows, Mac OS, your iOS kind of devices, your Android, as well as your virtual desktops. So in all these three areas between endpoints, your mobile device kind of operating systems, and your virtual desktops, you have that layer of protection and that trust layer that you do have with the likes of Microsoft as well. And finally, we're going to go through just a few things in terms of you wondering how Defender does sit kind of in the market as well. It is consistently rated as the top antivirus kind of product that you do have across so many different types of kind of corporations that kind of study this as well on a daily kind of basis and annually. So you've got all these kind of stats that do come through, and the MITRE. So you can definitely kind of read a little bit more of the bottom part of that actual link as well that we'll share this deck afterwards. So MITRE is absolutely huge in terms of what they do provide in terms of that as well. But also the fact that when it comes to a great little kind of graph that you can come in and also kind of compare to is that Microsoft is named a leader in the IDC MarketScape for modern endpoint security. This is huge. And even though this is kind of the IDC from 2024, unfortunately, we don't have the 2025 because that actually comes out in October. So I'll be keen to see where Microsoft do sit. But you can see they are very much the leaders at the top part of that screen right there. And why? Because they can invest so much cash and they can inject that level of cash into the likes of security. So Defender for Business has been kind of injected massively, and I believe it's over 50 billion that Microsoft have brought to the kind of the playing field, and especially kind of investment into Defender for Business to kind of ensure that businesses are protected, especially with users less than kind of 300 seats, because that's where Business Premium kind of sits. Anything beyond 300 seats, that's when you start going into enterprise grade kind of solutions, like your E3s and your E5s. But of course, for the main part, anything less than 300, Business Premium is an absolute winner to kind of provide everything you need in a single pane of glass. And yeah, team, I think we've actually come to the end of the session. But yeah, I think any questions at all? Anything from that we've kind of gone through?
So, first of all, Pedro, thank you for that. That was really good. It was if people have questions, please by all means raise your hand now. If you don't, that's fine. We can field these after the call. You can be in touch with your Cobweb account manager or myself as you see fit. So so that's absolutely fine. If you're watching this on a record, again, just be in touch with your Cobweb account manager with any questions or thoughts. Pedro, that was excellent. Thank you very much. Super interesting. I find it fascinating. And we hear about the threats and the dangers and all the scary stuff all the time, which is fine, but it's more interesting to me to see that the solutions are there, that you know, that the stuff is inside of the product that people have already purchased in a great many examples. You know, Business Premium, I think you called it a hero SKU or something. I think that's what you called it, which always just sort of makes me chuckle. But yeah, you know, there's stuff around productivity, the stuff around security, the stuff that really can help folks to help them to be more productive and what have you. So, as I said at the beginning, this is not meant to be a sales webinar. This is not to try and sell you something. It's very much to help you to be enable and get the most out of the investments you've already made. That said, if you're thinking of moving to Business Premium or what have you, then again, you can talk to your Cobweb account manager. But if you're wanting to go back through any of the guidance that Pedro has touched on, how do I do this? How do I turn this? How do I make sure that my Business Premium is optimized? This is something that that Cobweb can help you with. Absolutely. We've had one question come in. How long does it typically take for a business to fully implement and integrate Microsoft 365 Business Premium into their environment?
Yeah, no, brilliant. So yeah, great question. And this is quite interesting as well when it comes to kind of Business Premium. I think we alluded to it a little bit earlier. So with standard, when it comes to business standard as well, I'm going to just allude to that as well a little bit. You've got obviously quite a lot of things that you need to integrate, especially when it comes to security baselines, MFA, simple things like that. It's more of a thing that you need to go in and kind of build out and make sure everything's kind of set correctly. Business Premium is instantaneous. The moment that you go in and enroll it and assign it to an actual kind of user, they're going to have kind of everything kind of enrolled immediately. So that kind of proactive behavioral sense gets kind of brought in immediately. So MFA is completely kind of enrolled. Of course, you do have to still set up kind of a few things in the back end, but you could be up and running in pretty much minutes, especially across your productivity suite. So whether that's kind of your office applications, again, going into kind of those links, that's kind of fully kind of deployed immediately. So you don't have anything to worry about, but it's definitely going through and understanding each kind of perspective, especially when it comes to purview, labeling kind of documents, all those kind of intangibles that are kind of built in within there as well. It's definitely worth kind of taking your time and going through each of those layers, understanding them as well. So technically it can be absolutely minutes in terms of the phases of kind of what you have with the license, those kind of baseline kind of features as well. And the more advanced features as well that you can have built in as well, is just that you can start going through with the actual purview and compliance suite within that actual portal. So yeah, minutes could be kind of brought in, and you can take as long as you need in terms of going through more of the advanced stages.
Outstanding. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, we talk to customers all the time about that at Cobweb, and I think the overriding message is, this isn't something that you should be scared of. Absolutely embrace it. Speak to your MSP, speak to Cobweb. We can help you to manage your 365 environment, help you to make sure it's optimized. And that's not just by selling you services and products. That can just be through some simple guidance, all the way through to a full managed service. So there's different options, different things. Some customers take care of things themselves. Some customers choose not to do that. So all topics of conversation that you can have with your contact at Cobweb. Pedro, that was outstanding. Thank you. Once again, please reach out with any questions, any thoughts, any feedback. We love hearing feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And if there are no other questions, then we will leave you to get on with your days. Pedro, thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and great rest of your week too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.